Welcome to Cross-Checking. This week, our podcast will encourage you as much to dive into suffering as putting your face in front of Michael McCarron's fist.
Not to disparage any of our listeners, but I'm guessing at least 80% of our audience has no idea who you're talking about.
For those of you who have no clue what I'm talking about, that's okay. But I do encourage you, if you aren't squeamish and you like hockey, go look up Michael McCarron fighting Corey Perry. It's
Corey Perry, who deserves it.
Yeah.
I didn't even see the game. I don't know why he deserved it. I'm confident he deserved it.
It was a scrap. Anyway, welcome to another episode of Cross-Checking. There's your 10-second hockey update for this episode. We are both on a bit of a time crunch here. My fault, not Josh's. And Josh is going on vacation in a couple weeks here, so your next couple episodes are going to be a little bit shorter, but we are sticking with our discipleship theme for our season. For the next couple episodes, you're going to get just some things that Josh and I have been pondering as it relates to discipleship and the season of the church year that we are in. So we hope we find these to be edifying, encouraging, and also just a good resource as you dive into your Holy Week and Easter. So, Josh, I'll kick it to you first. As we're thinking about Holy Week coming up here, I always think of this as an incredibly heavy week, and we talked about that a little bit on last week's podcast. But what are you chewing on discipleship-wise as you get ready for Holy Week?
I want to give you two answers to that question.
I love to.
The first is personally,
sure.
Because for anyone who missed this memo, the Lenten season and the Advent season are busier than usual for church workers. If you think about it for any number of seconds, that makes a lot of sense. If for no other reason, there is an extra service every week, which means a second sermon, which means a second sermon prep, and everything else that goes into a service, right? If I'm looking down the hallway, Michael, who's our music guy, he has more music to plan and put together. Trisha, who's our secretary, she has more bulletins to assemble and get printed. And so it's a busy time. Holy Week is maybe the busiest week of the year. Because even with some of it maybe depends where Christmas falls, but with Christmas, you have Christmas Eve and Christmas. With Holy Week, you have Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, and Easter. And in some places, two separate kinds of services on Easter Day. So it's a lot. And when my plate starts to get full, I tend to really lean into clearing off my to-do list. I become very productive. But when I become very productive, it is always get this done, next thing, get this done, next thing. I don't slow down.
Mm.
And that is a problem when it comes to like my personal devotion or my personal Bible readings. Like God's word, when we approach it, we should slow down to read it carefully. So that as I'm approaching Holy Week, and I know it's going to be a really busy week, that's something that is on my mind as part of what discipleship has to look like. And as you're listening to this, a lot of you guys listening to this aren't church workers. And Holy Week is still more busy than average for you because you're in church and whatever, but
you've probably got, there's a decent chance you're either road tripping, or you've got family coming in, or you got to make some extravagant side dish for the Easter ham that's coming or whatever.
Somehow I should smoke a ham this Easter.
Sorry for adding more to your to-do list.
It's barely a to-do list. I have a pellet-fed smoker. I turn it on, set the temperature, and let it sit.
Right.
No, so what I'm trying to say is, I don't know. I don't think this is a bad lesson for any time life picks up in busyness for you.
Mm.
So especially like kind of looking down the calendar as we're recording this, the end of the school year is right around the corner for a lot of folks, for a lot of families.
Mm.
And that becomes a very busy time because you might have awards banquets or graduations or celebrations or any number of things that and there are all sorts of other times that our lives just get really busy. And it's really important during those times to remind ourselves and remind each other, like, this is a good opportunity to be a good Christian friend. You see your friends busy and tell them, hey, take a breath, slow down, take the extra few minutes to go through your devotion thoughtfully. So that's kind of a personal note for, as I'm looking at this Holy Week, as we record this next week, what do I want to keep in mind for my own discipleship? But kind of if I could have one wish for the discipleship of you guys who are listening, who are in a different place than me, it would be to check your perspective and just make sure you're hopefully going to be at church a lot this next week. You'll be there on Sunday for Palm Sunday. You'll be there again on Thursday for Maundy Thursday. You'll be there again on Friday for Good Friday. You'll be there again on Sunday for Easter. Maybe not at Hope. To my knowledge, we don't have anything on Saturday, but
we have our Easter egg hunt on Saturday.
Yeah. You might have something you're volunteering with or helping set up on Saturday. And my challenge for your discipleship this Holy Week is to look at those opportunities as exciting things you get to go to instead of another burden, another thing you have to go spend time doing.
Yeah. And maybe even thinking about this theologically, this kind of meshes with something I'm chewing on. I'm doing some reading on spiritual disciplines. And one of the books that I'm reading right now really leans into the idea that it's really easy for spiritual disciplines to become legalistic. Like, I have to do my Bible reading. I have to be in church. I have to be in prayer. I have to fast during Lent. I have to, X, Y, and Z. And it's good for us to remember, especially at times of year where we're really heavily invested in and participating in the life of the church, that like these things are there not for us to have to do them, but for God to build us up. And when we go into them with this sense of like having to do it, it's going to tear us down. For different people, that's going to mean you need different things. You might need a friend to encourage you in them, or a friend to call you out when you're being a pansy. A la Josh's,
you're being soft.
Exactly.
10-ply.
I was gonna say, a la Josh and his lifting buddies.
You need someone to call you chicken legs.
Yeah, exactly. But spiritual chicken legs. Right?
Don't be spiritual chicken legs. You might become spiritual fried chicken.
Yeah. But like,
well,
let just be a season to grow.
Yeah, just kind of an example, because it's one of those things where I think the line between burden and treat, burden and something to be excited about is largely one of perspective. Mm-hmm. Because even today, like, does it represent a lot of extra work? Yes. I am excited about Maundy Thursday and Good Friday. Like, even as a kid, I looked forward to those services because I loved, and still do, I love the stripping of the altar and how kind of visceral that image is of all these things being stripped away and just having the bare altar left. Like that's a powerful image. And I remember as a kid, maybe not as a young kid, but once I was old enough to kind of get what was going on in middle school and high school, like I loved it. And I love it. And Good Friday, the darkness and the slamming of the book at the end of the service, and just the impact of that. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for it. And it could just as easily be there's so much to do. There's so much to get ready. There's an extra sermon, and all that's true, but it's, in my experience, it's a matter of perspective. So I want to encourage, look forward to it. This is some cool stuff. And what we're celebrating are no small things. So try to frame it that way. And it might be, you might have to convince yourself if you're kind of sitting in the place where it looks like a burden, but if you say it enough times, it'll become your reality.
I think another way to kind of ponder that too, and this might be something that as pastors we need to remind ourselves, is like, not everybody needs to be excited about all these things, but Jesus in Sermon on the Mount, as he's talking about the ways in which we worry and struggle, encourages us to be present in the moment where we are. Right? Let tomorrow worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow can worry about itself. Live for today.
Or as I like to say, future Josh's problem.
Yeah. It's future Ben's problem. It's future Josh's problem. It's future fill in the blank Lutheran members' problem, right? I'm assuming that we have at least one Martin somewhere. Martin,
not that I'm aware of, problem. But sure.
I've got people with last name Martin, so I'll count that.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Live in the moment. Live for now. When it comes,
but
to
not
faith.
So far that you're saying things like eat and drink for tomorrow we die.
Exactly, but
it's a little bit too far.
When you're sitting in service, try and keep your mind focused on what you're up to. And I think that will help you grow, help you be discipled, even when some of these things feel like a burden. Because if we just keep our mind focused on the task at hand and the moment at hand, it'll give us a lot more perspective as to what we're truly doing, especially what we're celebrating and remembering on Maundy, Thursday, and Good Friday. Yeah. So Josh, I'm assuming that we hit on the personal side now. How about for communal side? I'm assuming that's the other direction that you were going with this.
Well, that was the piece of look at this like a joy.
Okay.
Like look at this as I get to, not a I have to. Yeah, I mean, and I can, unless you want to take over, in which case, by all means. Just some other things I've heard. These are just discipleship practices that I've heard other people use during Holy Week. I've known some people who will do like a special reading plan. Like in Holy Week itself, they'll go through and maybe they'll read one of the Gospels, or they'll read the Passion account once every day, and that's a cool thing you can do. Devotions, never a bad way to go. I've heard some people who fast maybe in a more extreme way than we usually think of it, because when we think about a Lenten fast, a lot of times it's you're giving one kind of food up, maybe. But I met one pastor once who he fasted. I want to say I met one guy who fasted all week. which is something. I feel like that's your, especially if you're working during the week as a pastor, that sounds like it could be risky if you're not really careful with, making sure you're drinking electrolyte. Like you need some calories at some point during the week, or you're going to pass out during one of the services. I've met people who will fast from Maundy, Thursday until Easter morning. I've met people who will fast from the Good Friday service until Easter morning. And those are cool. And those kind of, you fast while Jesus was in the tomb. And that's pretty cool. Like, that's a pretty cool kind of connection you can make of your discipleship practice to the thing that we're celebrating. But those are just some of the things I've heard different people do. For whatever it's worth, I'm intending to do a 36-hour fast from Maundy, Thursday through Good Friday, and I'll break the fast on Saturday morning so that I'm fueled up and ready to go for Easter. But yeah. So what about you, Ben? What's your discipleship look like? What's your discipleship hope for your congregation? Anything you've heard that I missed?
Yeah, no. I think the one that I'm chewing on, kind of both for me and for our congregation here at Good Shepherd, the passage from Romans 5, I believe this actually shows up in the Good Friday service this year. But not only, it's Romans 5, 3-5, not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. And one of the things that I'm kind of trying to sit in right now is, am I ready to suffer for the cross? Am I willing to face the brokenness of humanity? Am I willing to come alongside those who are bearing burdens in my congregation? Where it is my responsibility, am I willing to help take them up? Those kinds of things. And I think, for many of us who live in the West, in the United States especially, we don't like to be uncomfortable. So sitting and suffering sounds like a terrible time.
Which, I mean, that's like kind of the point. So
yeah. But also, like, let's not be afraid of that. We don't need to seek it out. It comes to us when it needs to. But this Holy Week, this can be a good opportunity for us to sit in suffering a little bit. We remember our part in Jesus' betrayal. We remember our part in Jesus' death. We remember our part in Jesus facing the grave. And for a few days, that gets us used to remembering, partaking in suffering, so that as we see and experience the suffering in the world around us, we're better able to speak to how Christ has suffered for the world so that we can be free and we can have a hope. Yeah. I mean, there's so many ways that I'm, and reasons that I'm chewing on that. And like, for me, a big part of that is, as somebody who's wrestled with mental health issues in the past, like, willingly embracing and approaching suffering and dark things sounds like a terrible idea. But also, like, it's how you end up with spiritual chicken legs.
yeah. There's and there are so many different ways I could illustrate this, and a lot of them might be better, but one of the literary genre I read the most of is it's a genre called lit RPG. It essentially, the main character somehow ends up in a world that follows video game rules. Okay, for those of you who haven't played most video games, you advance by killing. Like that's you vanquish an opponent, you get experience, you grow stronger, whatever. Okay, so framework. Reading a book where the main character is growing in power, and he comes across an elite person who was raised in a family who knew what they were doing. They had been trained from the moment they were born, and he beats them. And as he's kind of, reflecting on the fight, the term he labels them is it's a greenhouse elite, because they knew all the right things to do. They had all the power, but they had never faced life and death. So when they faced life and death, when they came face to face with an actual potential death, they cracked and they crumbled because they were a greenhouse elite. I think we have a similar term, greenhouse flowers. There is a danger for our faith becoming that. If we isolate ourselves from suffering, if we never deal with hard things, it's like growing up in a greenhouse, which is fine as long as you can stay in the greenhouse. But if you ever get left outside,
there's a good image that goes to this too. For all of you who are gardeners, once you take your plant out of the greenhouse or out of your grow lab or whatever you've got, the first thing that you need to do if you're going to introduce it to an outdoor plot is you need to harden it off. So you bring it out for increasing amounts of time throughout the day so that it gets used to the fluctuations in weather and temperature and humidity and everything. And then you can plant it after a while. But you have to do all these things to make sure that it's ready in order to be prepared. And it's exactly what Josh and I have been talking about, that like, if you sit in the comfy greenhouse, same temperature, same humidity, same everything, water supplied, you get sunlight even when the sun doesn't shine because they've got fake sun, like everything's golden. But the second that you're exposed to something real, like the plant can fall apart.
No.
But our faith needs to be exposed to those things that allow it to harden off. Not for the sake of making us callous, but for the sake of making us
strengthening our faith for the moments when it needs to be strong.
Exactly. All right, Josh, you ready for some empty netters?
Yeah, let's chuck them in there. My empty netters, just enjoy Holy Week. It's a beautiful celebration we get to share. So enjoy Holy Week with your church, wherever that may be.
I would say as much as you can this week, slow down. Take your time. Be at church early. Take your time leaving. Like, let God do what he needs to do to refresh you, to restore you, to harden you, to strengthen you. It'll be good.
It'll be good. All right. With that, brothers and sisters, go in peace. Serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Thank you for listening in to this episode of Cross-Checking, a ministry of Hope and Good Shepherd Lutheran Churches, where we strive to deepen your understanding of the faith and help apply it to daily life. If this podcast is helpful to you, rate the podcast, subscribe to us on your favorite platform, and share it with others who might also gain something from it.